I'm going to just start talking more specifically about the internet and what's going on in the online space. And I've got a few sort of headline messages. You know, the first one, I'm sure we've all seen this, is that how fast the marketplace is changing. Apple's an interesting one. I was reading about Apple the other day, and this is a stat, I don't know whether everyone gets this, but something like 3/4 of Apple's income comes from products they didn't have 3 years ago. I mean, that's an amazing rate of change, you know, in that space. Other big thing, mobile. You know, mobile is really sort of exploding. If you read, you know, lots of studies in this area, you know, the growth on mobile is faster than anything we've seen in the past. You know, so we're seeing those things really go up. And I'm going to ask a few of those questions as this little presentation goes, because I mentioned earlier we've been doing these events for, I don't know, 10, 11 months, and I asked the same questions, and what's been really noticeable to me is how the show of hands has changed. So really, I suppose one of the big messages I would make from all this change is that technology is putting the consumer and us basically in control like never before. That's a massive shift of, you know, if you like, of information and power into the hands of the consumer. And with the modern devices, you can take that with you, as I just mentioned. You know, it's in our pockets. Given that, I thought it's interesting just to look at who's the most advanced in terms of the online space. My view, it tends to be the large retailers. Anyone in the audience, do people in the audience agree with that? Yeah? And one of the reasons I would say that is because they're doing everything in this space. If you look at a large retailer site these days, what do? They make it very easy for you to buy. What else do they do? Kind of the output of all that is, as a small business owner, there's a lot more to think about than ever before. Marketplace is really, really complicated. And unlike those large players, we heard it earlier, don't really have the resources of the large players can bring to bear. And there is only 24 hours in the day, so it's quite a challenge, I think, for small businesses to compete in this online space. I think today is the time to start to really be active in social media. I'm going to ask this question now, but who's got a Facebook page? Yeah. I should say for their business, I guess. Who's got a Twitter account? Yeah. When I started asking those questions, you know, 10, 11 months ago, the number of hands that went up in the room was, you know, I could probably count on the fingers of one hand. You know, just by that at the moment, there's about 40–50% of the audience were putting their hand up. There's a major shift going on in this space, and you know, really need to be part of it. The big message here is go where your customers are. Don't expect them to come to you. It's important that you've got a website that's optimized so that you can be found. But there are lots of other places where customers these days and potential customers go to talk about your business. People are going to talk about you online regardless. I quite often ask questions about reviews and ratings, particularly for service businesses at this stage. And the reaction I get is quite often a bit negative and a bit wary towards reviews and ratings. Can I do another sort of sweep test? Who's happy to have their business rated and reviewed? Yeah, well, that's great, because that has changed absolutely. You know, that has changed an awful lot. So, in summary, for me, these are the big messages I really wanted to leave everybody with. You know, first and foremost, you know, make sure you can be found where your customers are looking for you online. You know, do research where they are and go to them. Make sure you've got a presence. Word of mouth, websites, and everything else, to my mind, does work hand in hand. You know, it's very important to be consistent, because if people start to pick up those inconsistent messages, it starts to make them concerned about, is this really the company I think it is? Big point here, your online reputation is your brand. There's many sort of leading analysts who are actually saying that your online reputation is going to be the latest version of the credit score. And then I put a final one here, which is, like, if in doubt, experiment. What better time to try than in the early days? You know, because you can actually go and you can afford to make a few mistakes, particularly in an online space. I mean, whilst the record's there forever, in some respects, you can change it tomorrow. You know, if you've got some messages up there, you change it. That's what the large companies do all the time in terms of their marketing. So that's the overview from me. Thank you very much.